Today, we become legends.
In Smite, it seems that a very specific few gods cause a lot of the annoyance and receive a lot of the hatred from me, and within those few specific god kits, there are often only a few specific abilities that make that god so annoying. Well, today's video is going to count down 15 of the abilities I hate the most. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my top 15 favourite abilities that I'll be covering after this one as a sort of reverse. And quick disclaimer that this is just my personal opinion, and if I hate one of your favourite god's abilities, you don't need to send me death threats in-game about it. We all have our own takes on what is fun and what's not in this game, but without further ado, let's jump in. So first up at number 15 is Bastet's post-rework ultimate. This ability really just feels like it doesn't belong on an assassin, never mind on Bastet. She was always the god with high mobility and damage but low CC to compensate, but now she just gets one of the best single target CC abilities in the game that rivals Fenrir ult without even putting yourself out of position to use it. Another smaller reason I dislike this ability is because of how janky it is to use and be hit by. The initial projectile is sometimes just invisible for no reason, so it's very hard to dodge, and the camera shake that happens when being pulled by it makes me think an atomic bomb has just gone off in my own house. Nothing to like about this ability really, and it was a significant downgrade on Bastet's previous ult in my opinion. Next up, I have an ability that I don't necessarily hate the design of, but I do hate the way it's used, and that's Apollo's ultimate across the skies. I'm jaded towards this ability purely because of the ridiculous amount of split-pushing rats that have used this ability to justify their playstyle over the years. Whether it's enemy Apollos causing chaos by making half my team back to base to stop him killing the Phoenix, then flying over to Fire Giant on the other side of the map, or my own Apollos split-pushing all game saying they'll ult over to the fight but dying in the wind-up animation and making us fight a 4v5, this ability just rubs me the wrong way in terms of how it's used. This next one might offend a couple of people, but at number 13 I have Khepri's ultimate. Now hear me out, I love having a Khepri on my team as much as the next guy, but that doesn't stop the fact that an enemy Khepri is just pain. Especially as a guy who enjoys burst gods, dumping my whole kit into someone just for Khepri to show up and ult them over the wall and nullify all my efforts is one of the worst feelings in Smite. And even if you play around it by not going all in until it's used, it's still massively affecting your gameplay at that point and forcing you to play non-optimally just by existing. Geb Shield is similar but won't be on the list purely because it's not an outright anti-kill ability. You can still pressure through Geb Shield and kill. Khepri is just the ultimate denial. My number 12 most hated ability in Smite is Danzaburrow's Jar. I have so little respect for this ability that I refuse to learn its actual name, but it's by far one of the most annoying things to deal with in the game. Much like Bastet's ult from before, this ability just doesn't belong on a hunter. The heal and damage are solid, but the 30% slow that chains into the taunt is what really grinds my gears on this one. But not only does it taunts with no DR for some reason. You'd think the DR resistance will be more suited for, I don't know, a Guardian, you know, those guys that are kind of known for their good CC, but apparently this hunter needs it too, I guess. And it's not even because the ability would DR itself, slows don't apply DR, so really it's just there for no reason. This is a weird one since it doesn't seem super offensive on paper, but getting hit by it in game just makes me want to commit war crimes. So this next one is real simple. Kamazot's ult is just the definition of unfun, and they even buffed it recently. Like, why? Not only is it completely uninteractive for the person being hit by it, it's also boring as hell to use too. It's just guaranteed free damage and safety with no risk at all. Enemies under a tower? No problem. Enemies in the backline surrounded by 4 other teammates? Easy kill. It deals 720 base and 105% scaling, which is absurdly high for how guaranteed the damage is from this. That's more than most assassin ults that actually take some skill to use and don't come with insane safety tacked on. Get this guy out of my games and back to a wet market in China where he belongs, please. Speaking of China, Jing is up next with her passive Rapid Reincarnation, aka win lane for free. Even after they nerfed the distance on this a while back, it's still just the most boring but insanely strong passive in existence. The ADC poke wall means absolutely nothing to her. She can lose a trade over and over again and still be back for every single minion wave. The only way to actually get a lead on Jing is to outright kill her because of this passive, but given how insanely safe she is within the rest of her kit, that's pretty damn hard to do, and if you leave her with even 1% health after a fight, she's going to be back in lane at full before you've even cleared the wave. At which point, all your pressure is gone and she's back in business. Screw this passive, honestly. From one hunter passive to another, at number 9 I have Izanami's auto attacks. I know this is technically not her passive, but her autos are mentioned in the passive and nowhere else, so it's the only way I could really include them on the list. These autos, man, they just win you the lane for free with no skill involved, and I hate it. There's a reason Izanami is such a strong beginner god, and it's because she gets free lane pressure from level 1, and it's hard to lose when the enemy can't fight you for the first 5 levels because you outclear them massively without even having to use an ability. So you still have all your stuff ready for the fight afterwards after clearing the wave for free, free with your insane basic attacks. Other gods have this effect or something similar, like Rama's astral arrows, Jingwei's explosive bolts, Ishtar's imbue arrows, etc., but they all have to pay mana and a cooldown, or a resource in Rama's case, to use these, and they're limited time. Izanami gets this effect for free at all times, and that's just cringe in my opinion. In fact, it's basically the only reason I dislike Izanami. I think the rest of her kit is pretty fine. At number 8, I have Hades 3 Devour Souls. We've all been on the receiving end of this ability, and I'm sure this is one of the picks that a lot of you will agree with. The insane burst damage and healing of this ability is just absurd when done in a full minion wave, and similar to Izanami from before, this ability single-handedly wins Hades the lane in solo and probably anywhere else you want to play him to. It's impossible to compete with this ability since you can't try to clear his wave yourself because you'll get feared into it and blown up when he full heals his own wave and insta-kills yours. You can't try and poke him out because of the aforementioned bullshit healing that this provides. Your only option early on versus this ability is to wait for him to use it and then go clear the wave, which just sucks to be on the receiving end of. But then you get to late game and this ability feels severely underwhelming, so you can't really nerf it either because it would be literally useless in teamfights if you nerfed it any further. It's an awkward one really, and I've always suggested some kind of functionality that summons ghost minions from either his 1 or 2 that you can use to blow up with his 3 and give it more presence in teamfights and not just a one target detonate. At that point, you could nerf its overall damage per minion blown up and scaling and stuff, and it'd still be decent in teamfights while not being oppressive as all hell in the laning phase. Next up though, at number 7, I have Ares Chains. It's an 8-second cripple that deals up to 840 base and 120% scaling in damage to a single target on a Guardian. That alone should be enough to justify this ability's placement on the list. Even 2 or 3 seconds of being crippled is enough to die for it in Smite, so 8 seconds is just guaranteed death for the target of these infernal chains. So you might want to beads these and jump away, but then you remember you're playing against Ares, and as soon as you beads he just ults you, and by the time it goes off your beads have worn off and you get pulled in for free. You're really stuck between a rock and a hard place when being chained by Ares, and it's definitely one of my most hated abilities in Smite. Charybdis 3 is up next, which I've railed against in a video recently, but to reiterate, this shit is basically instant immunity on command that lasts for 3 seconds, and it's on a hunter. I touched on Jingwei's ridiculous safety earlier, but this is the pinnacle of hunter safety that just shouldn't exist. They're meant to be late game focused, glass cannon style characters with insane damage while being vulnerable. This ability basically makes Charybdis not vulnerable at all while she has it up, and the only reason she's not completely broken is because the rest of her kit isn't all that special. This ability itself is something any hunter, hell probably any squishy in the game would want access to. It's instant Aegis and in a way instant beads on a 15-second cooldown. It's just stupid. Breaking the top 5, we have the ability that rewards you for missing it entirely. That's right, it's Persephone ult. Somehow this ability escape changes when she was reworked. Like, they decided to rework her too to make it brain dead when it was the most interesting and skill testing part of her kit beforehand, but then they didn't decide to change the brain dead ult that still gets insane value if you throw her to wall instead of the enemy team. Persephone has always been a hot topic and a god I don't really like, but the main reasons were her passive and ult. The passive was changed, albeit to something awful but in a different way, so why has this dumbass ult not been changed yet? At the very least, they should remove the mechanic that allows you to miss it and still cause havoc for the enemy team, if not a full rework. Oh, and one final thing, the fact that this is basic attacks to get out of it is just pain for support, even after they remove the attack speed reduction from this. Taking the number 4 spot is the legendary 6-second moving AoE cripple itself, Artio's Entangling Vines. This is a true classic in terms of being hated in the Smite community, and I wholeheartedly agree. Ever since Artio's release way back in 2017, this ability has been terrorizing anyone with a movement ability. Not to mention gods that use movement abilities for damage like Oelix or Fenrir. Yes, this technically cripples for less overall time than Ares, but this is AoE, much easier to use, and allows Artio to continue dumping the rest of her kit onto the enemy while the cripple goes on. It also debuffs your power for the duration, cause why not, but the 6-second AoE cripple is the part of this ability that draws all the hatred. But hey, at least it's not launch Artio where this ability went on cooldown immediately, effectively reducing the cooldown on it by 6 seconds. Breaking into the top 3, we have Calder. Yeah, I'm sure anyone who watches my videos somewhat frequently would know that Calder will be showing up pretty high on this list. There's a reason everyone says the actual god is Calder and the passive is Skadi. This guy pretty much does all the work for you as the Skadi player. All you have to do is target him on an enemy and watch them evaporate, maybe pressing 4 if you see Calder getting low health at any point. He also body blocks auto attacks like no one's business, making it super hard to actually box or kill Skadi while he eats your face off. The sheer amount of brain dead Skadi players I've seen survive fights they just simply shouldn't have because they pressed 2 on an enemy and Calder did all the work is honestly astounding. Fuck this ability. Taking the penultimate spot is another one that just had to have a high placement on the list, and that's Afro ult. I could probably end this entry here and no one will complain. This ability is somewhat universally hated. Similar to Khepri ult from before, is one of the best kill denial tools in the game, giving 2 seconds of complete immunity to 2 targets while also being able to heal in that time. So not only does the Afro and her soulmate go immune, but by the time they're unimmune, they're also back to 50% health from her healing birds, at which point your dreams of ever killing this bitch are dead and gone. It also cleanses CC on use and can even be used under any form of CC, including knockups. So even a CC that would normally prevent an enemy from using Aegis or something similar, Afro will still save them. This is just such a crutch that Afro mains use to survive their terrible positioning and all their teammates' terrible positioning, and is definitely one of my most hated abilities in the game, and the main reason I hate Afro so much. I simply couldn't choose just 15 abilities for this list as so many pissed me off beyond belief, so I have a few honourable mentions here that didn't quite make the list but were very close. Heim 3 for a similar reason to Jing passive in that he gets a free pass back to lane, but also a free pass out of his terrible positioning by TPing 7 light years away for free. Nike Barrier just annoys the hell out of me for some reason, the pushback is just so janky with this. Ularax because of the nuclear bomb that follows it. Nuwa because it's just so brain dead and almost no one uses it for the vision, which is the only interesting part of the ability in the first place. Bakasura for being the embodiment of left click W brain dead backer mains, and finally Tia Fearless because
all I play against is shitty ass tier players.
But with those out of the way, let's finish off this list with my number 1 most hated ability in Smite. However, it's actually 2 abilities. Yep, Knox combo is making another appearance. What more needs to be said about this really? It's the ultimate single target lockdown combo that means instant death if you're hit by it and don't have beads, and even if you do use beads, she's just going to do it again 10 seconds later, at which point you uninstall your game and never play it again. The recent but short-lived 60% CDR Borwell meta put the fear of God in me, with Knox mains everywhere coming out of the woodwork with a Knox combo on a 5-second cooldown. Let's just say my beads were non-existent and leave it at that. But that's all I got for my top 15 most hated abilities in Smite. If some of your mains were on here, then provide an argument down below as to why they shouldn't be so hated if you think that, beyond just fuck you noob Afro tech skill, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out you nerds.